Good afternoon. My name is Mark, and I'm with Gov Directions, and we're here going live on YouTube with our session this afternoon. We're going to talk about the RFP. Let me start letting everybody in who's directly at our meeting here. Just give us a minute as we get started. You can leave notes in the chat box. There we go. So here we are. We're getting started today, and we're letting everybody into our direct room here on Zoom. And we'll continue to let them in just for a few minutes as we get adjusted here. We're going to spend about 30 minutes together. Talk about what it really takes to win that first RFP. You know, the first step, of course, is going to be finding the bid, the RFP, and we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to start welcome you here to Gov School. This is one of the sessions I enjoy doing where it's going to have a Q&A, and I'm going to go ahead and start by opening up the chat box. Okay. And you can ask questions in the chat box. If you have a direct question, you can also raise your hand. I would ask that you maintain your mute status while you're in the room. That'll help everybody with background noise. Give everybody just a minute to get started before we get in here. The room's still filling up. We're going to spend about 30 minutes together talking about the RFP, how to go about finding them and winning them. And I'm here today. We're bringing you some lifelong experiences. Been doing this for over 25 years now. I'll stop at 25. I'm going to stop counting there. I think it's getting close to 35. But really enjoy working in this sector and working on not only government contracts, but also providing services to you through Gov Directions and Gov School, and Gov Advice, and now RFP Delivery. Got a new app there. If you haven't downloaded the app, make sure you do. We have it both in the Google Play Store as well as the App Store, providing you quick access to listings throughout the day. You can pull up at any given time your matches just by choosing the alerts tab now. So we're moving away from the concept of daily alerts to instant alerts.
No, I don't.
So we're not going to bother you though with those instant. You have to tap on it and look at it. So we're not going to invade your privacy there. We don't collect any kind of data about you whatsoever. So we'll go ahead and get started this afternoon. You can record this if you like. Certainly it's available to you by recording. I'm going to allow that. It's also available to those who don't really have that technical capacity to go just straight to YouTube afterwards. It'll be there in a recorded version for you to play back on your own leisure. In addition, I'm going to give you access, making sure you know your privacy, that we're recording this. Okay. So that means that if you're in the room, you will be, if you ask a question, you are recorded. Okay. Just to be clear on that. In the process. I'm also going to give you some links directly to the slides that I use as we go along. Okay. And that'll be available to you as well. You can just click on the Google Drive. I'm going to share with you, my sample drive, and how I'll go about setting that up at the same time. When you go through that, I think this is the first step. I think I labeled this in the email that we sent out to everyone. What the hardest part is getting started. And that really applies to just about everything. I remember starting Gov Directions back in 1998. My business partner and I went to lunch at a Subway, and we sort of pissed and said, we should do this, and came up with the concept of aggregation of information. Back then, internet was brand new, and we knew how difficult it was to really find the contracts. And we had both been consulting with governments in the 90s, and back then you really had to sit and wait, or somebody would. We did have the fax machine in the mid 90s, but even before that, we'd have to, really learn through word of mouth primarily about contracts. And, the fax machine sort of opened up things, and then the internet opened it up even more. And it continues to open daily. And now we're looking at AI and other methods that you might have in place to really go out there and track and find. And we hope that RFP Delivery is part of that platform that you're going to use. One of the things that RFP Delivery does as we're getting ready here is map out and just provides a geospatial analysis of where contracts actually exist. I'm always pointing out that we're not a speculative system. These are active, competitive contracts, and you can zero in your neighborhood to really go out there and find. And you see tabs all over the world. We've got about 72 countries now where new government contracts are located for our members who potentially could be eligible for those members. And always very quickly being able to drill in seeing that due date. Somebody's going to win that contract on or about that date. It's not like you and I going out and thinking about maybe hiring a landscaping company, then never go through with it. You know how that happens. Governments, they go through an elaborate decision-making process. So when they say that they're going to issue a contract and they want your response, first, it means it's competitive. The second thing, it means that it's not a waste of your time. Go after that transaction. You'll find that local governments, state governments, I was looking at one this morning, only had 3 responses to a very large project down in Texas. And that's not that's 1 in 3 shot. You're going to win it straight up. And so you got a really good chance, as opposed to maybe some of the federal contracts where you have, I was actually blocked out of sitting in on a session this morning because they already had so many people just to sit in on the pre-bid meeting. And so that's a much more competitive market space. So I'd like to point out when we are just starting out that local and state governments, cities and counties and schools, authorities specifically are the best place to start. And I mentioned earlier, it took me 6 months to land my first one. Here I am located in Atlanta, Georgia, down here in the deep South. And with somewhat limited exposure across the country, but in my first contract that I actually won after bidding all around me was in Vermont, and just fit my mode. It was really a perfect opportunity for me. And so I was able to reach out and go up to all the way up north there and do my first contract for a small association that then led to now where I've served in 34 states that have won over 350 contracts, with an average size of between $50,000 to $75,000. So I stay in a small, medium-sized sector, and I focused in specifically in my work it's related to is in the area of human resource management. And so that's just, I want to focus today, whenever I use some of the examples, I'm going to focus in on that so that there. But first, let's go back to, the what you're looking for, what you're trying to find. We're talking about the RFP, the request for proposal. This is when a government is seeking a solicitation from the market space that you're in, okay? They want to treat everyone that's in that market space uniformly. And they issue out this call for proposals that tells you how, every one of you, how to respond back to them. And you got to follow those instructions, okay? There's more formal streamlined acquisitions like the invitation to bid, where you will find or request for quotes, where you'll find items very specific, very well specified for you to respond back. Oftentimes they just want you to fill in a number, and that number is going to be the winning decision making. Most times, often though, there's sort of a combination of those more formal and then the open-ended sort of request like the RFP for you to respond back. So you got to know what you're looking at. And so and also remember, when you're looking, it's supposed to be hard. Okay. If it were easy, everyone would do it. This is Tom Hanks. I use this in every session I do. Now, just remember, just because it's 100-page or 1,000-page request, I've seen those before. Oftentimes they don't leave anything for doubt. And they're giving you a specification sheet that is elaborate. I teach a class in graduate school where I teach students who are going to be future writers of RFPs in the public sector. And one person this past semester, they filled out one for police car, and they literally had in their sample that they prepared probably about 20 pages worth of specs on a police car. Other places, they're going to have it less formal, maybe a page where they're just talking about just the big items. Okay, so it really is up to that procurement officer who's writing that. So pay attention to it. But just because it looks difficult doesn't always mean it's so difficult. But it is not easy. Everyone would do it. This is from a softball movie, and everybody can get out there and play softball. But if you want to be the best softball player, you got to really practice. You got to learn the rules. You got out there and execute, and that's what you got to do with government contracting. Today, I'm going to walk you through really what to look for, and then I'm going to show you some examples of how what I do whenever I actually go in and actually try to start something. Because even though when you go out there and you see some of these contracting instruments, and there's different types and different kinds, you got to know what you're looking for. We're going to focus on the request for proposal today, but there's other things such as the request for information. That was the one I was actually responding to earlier. They've got so many people coming just to go in for the RFI that they've closed off the eligible criteria. And so knowing that, okay, so they know it's a competitive marketplace, coming back probably with an actual RFP. And then you have these others that are out there, request for qualification, sort of pre-approving you, source of salt, making sure there is an active marketplace, invitation to quote. That could be something as simple as calling you up on the phone and saying, hey, I saw that capability statement. You match up, give me a price quote for pest control. Okay. And so then you could do that over the phone without much elaboration. So that's real informal to the more really deep specifications there with ITBs or requests for bids. And then, of course, my favorite is the request for proposal. Why is it my favorite? Because there, the government is saying, you know what, Mark, you're the subject matter expert. So we expect you to kind of help us along the way. We know kind of what we want to do in my work, setting up a compensation plan for the government. So they know how much to pay, incoming police officers and firefighters and, public works officers. That's what I kind of do. So they know what they want to do. They want a fair system. I've got this subject matter expertise. I've been doing this for decades. I can help them do that and plan this if they'll follow my method. Okay, I'm going to share with them my method. I'm going to share with them my deliverables. I'm going to share with them some information they'll seek in order to hire us. And so that's important. But always remember, regardless of what type of instrument they're using, this is the instrument being the method that they're going to use to acquire your services, because it's a valuable asset to them. You're a potential supplier. They want your proposal. It's a solicitation, and it's always made through a bidding process, meaning that you're competing with others. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean you're bidding on the low cost, but you're comparing. For example, if you're going to come in and try to compete with me on a project, you got to have the qualifications and experience level in order to get to be competitive with me. Okay, so you got to know that, you got to understand that going into it. Sometimes, like I did in Vermont that time, I went in and said, you know what? I know that I'm brand new at this, and but I'm good. Okay, I believe in what I do. I'm confident, but I'm gonna give you a price break, and so the point system, maybe 20-30% on price. I'm gonna give you a deep price in order to offset my lack of experience or my lack of qualifications just yet, because I'm brand new, but I'm gonna do a good job for you, and you convince them. So you're taking that overall process and making that a bid that may have different factors. So you got to understand which factors are being evaluated in the bid. So because ultimately they're going to make a decision to procure for that asset. Okay, so remember that. And so the request for proposal is a solicitation. And I like to also share that because a lot of times I get this question or the statement, Mark, I'm frustrated. This seems like it's a done deal. Every time I look at it, it looks like my competitor wrote it. It's for my competitor, and it fixes in. The answer to your question is no, it's not. In fact, in this class I was teaching in a semester, the first thing I told them, I said, you know what? Because they're in graduate school, they're all worried about references and listing, especially now you got ChatGPT and so forth, and they don't know how to specifically write a paper, and they want to give you those references. I said, listen, when you write in a request for proposal, an RFP, you're going to list this. No one expects you to be all-knowing as a procurement officer. So you might lift it from other procurement officers around the country. That's perfectly okay as accepted. So what you might be seeing and what it may look like it's for someone else, it's just a compilation of information to get your attention for the request for proposal, most oftentimes written somewhat generically, so they can make some changes if they need to. But just know, if they're in the marketplace with an RFP, it's a competitive situation. You'd be silly not to respond to it if you match up well. Okay. Speaking of matching up well, always know, and here's other one I'm going to share with you. When you open up the RFP, make sure it's singing the song in the back of your head. Okay. You're the one that I wanted to find. Okay. If it doesn't say that, it's a gold plate's not dinging in the back of your head, then move along. There's a lot of open opportunities. There's a $6 trillion marketplace now. And so you can find, we want to publish 1.5 million calls for bids and proposals this coming year, almost 150,000 a month on average. So this is an active marketplace, and you're going to find that you're going to have opportunities. So don't dwell on one that doesn't fit you. If you're questioning yourself and this is maybe not the right one, now don't self-doubt all the time. But if it's clearly saying that, just move along. You'll find one that is. And how do you know that? Okay. First, you're going to look at the typical parts of the RFP. You're going to read through it. First thing I always do when I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do something, before, getting started, is looking at that statement of work. That statement of work should fit my company. It should say exactly what I do. It's probably maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs, and it should be clearly written, accurate, brief, clarity, is that's the key to writing, ABCs. And if that part does, then I'm gonna move ahead. If it doesn't, I'm gonna start searching for another one, because there's a lot of listings every single day, and I'm gonna check through those. Then I'm gonna look at the technical specs. Now I don't have to have 100% match on the technical specs. They're going to tell me the ideal situation. Oftentimes they'll miss it, they miss the boat. Okay, and the people who do this kind of work know, what the spec should be. Maybe the procurement officer doesn't. They're not geniuses at any level of the word, because they've got a lot of things in play. They're not only is the person who writes the RFP for my work doing compensation management, but they're writing RFPs for water sewer plants, and they're writing RFPs for testing and delivery and all kinds of stuff. And so they can't be expected to know every single thing out there, so they can miss a technical spec so often. So I just share that with you, so that you don't just rule out something because you don't meet everything with them on this technical specs. Okay. Never, though, leave it for doubt. So if you can't do something, always speak to it. The schedule, typically the schedule is when they want you to respond or when they want you to deliver if you're hired. Okay. And those lists of deliverables that are there should also be the same sort of approach you do with the technical specs. Almost always they're going to give it to you in a point order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you don't know how to write something, start with number 1. Okay. Answer the question to number 1 and then move to number 2. Okay. That's a clear, easy way to do things. In fact, I did one the other day let me just pull this one up. And this is an RFI that I responded to. And I'll even show you how simple I made it, because simple is best. Okay. And I can't say that enough. So keep it simple, keep it accurate, brief, and clear, and you're going to do fine. Okay. Just don't doubt yourself. So here's one I did for the Small Business Administration, SBA. And I still haven't heard from them. Most likely not. It was a request for information. And so that just is how things work. And so I did my part, and then maybe they'll call me one day. We'll see. Okay. So don't get frustrated when those things kind of happen. But here, whenever I laid it out, I took that, and it was a complex RFI. And so I had a cover letter and my cover sheet. But then I actually put in the table of contents almost exactly the way they wrote the request for information. And then I broke it down into sections: provider information, business information, my capability, experience. They asked me specific questions, A, B, C. Okay. I responded A, B, C, D. And I always even restated their questions that they gave me. E, this is the E. And then sometimes if you have to break it up, I'll be E1, E2. Okay. F, G. I went through exactly the way they did the approach for sections and so forth. So I kept it in the same order that they gave it to me, because it was built by the list of deliverables, what they expected. Okay. The government is also going to tell you how you're going to make your profit. This is the contract terms and conditions. You should get familiar with 1 or 2 things with contracts, because it's bidding and contracting, because the contract's what's going to really control things. Once you get everything done and you got the deal, then you got to live by that contract term. And this is clearly anyone's profit center, because if you find yourself in a contract squabble, then you're going to lose all your profit. Okay. So you need to know what those terms are and those conditions are, and then understand that the government is not going to budge off those individual requirements. Okay. Sorry, I'm making up words here. Bulge is not the right word, but budge. So they're not going to move off that. Okay. And that's important that you understand that. So read through the contract terms. The format of the proposal, they're going to tell you how they want you to respond. And the reason why is because they want to be able to evaluate you, comparatively speaking, to others that are in your field. Okay. So they want you all to send them the same proposal back. I was reviewing one this afternoon. Somebody sent to me, because I do that. If you remember, if you have an interest in just getting me to review it, just send it to me and I will before you fire it off. And the first thing I noticed is they're not doing they're not putting back in the format that they had actually listed and requested. So why are you going to bother if you're going to make the government go look for the information again? Okay. The government tells you how they want it done. Follow the instructions. If they want questions answered, that's what they want. They don't need anything else. Okay. They don't offer anything else. Never be creative. It's great that you've done all these things, and you're great with everything that you do. But the government, whenever they evaluate a proposal, they got to treat you all uniformly. So they're looking only for the answers to the questions that they ask. Okay. Stay focused on this. Never be creative, because the first person you're really trying to get by is not really at the end of the day, probably the one who's going to make the decision, but it's going to be the one who's going to vet you and make sure that you can follow some instructions. And that's the procurement officer. They're going to make sure that you follow the rules and the regulations. That's their job. And then they're going to pass you along. And the last thing you want to do is passing along somebody you can't follow instructions. Okay. They don't care how creative you are. That could be that could hinder you, that could hurt you in this field. You need to be able to do what they ask you to do. And when you get in there and you actually win the contract, then that's when you get to shine and you get to be creative and you get to help them along, but following those contract terms and those conditions that they required. Okay. And your qualification experience, look for that. Don't let that scare you away. Every one of you, including me, came to this business, came to this field, this sector with no bids, no contracts, and you had to start somewhere. Okay. Maybe you started as an employee with another company. That's qualification experience. Maybe you started as a subcontractor with another company. That's qualifications and experience. And then maybe you wanted one or two. And then even then you don't win it all. Just the other day in Tennessee, I've only won one contract in 34 years in Tennessee. It's my next door neighbor. I didn't win that one either. But it's not for lack of trying. Okay. And you can sell that. But you have that process. So don't let qualification experience scare you off. This is the part that you really should use to your advantage. In fact, they tell you what their ideal situation is, and you explain to them why you're better. Okay, that's the way to approach that. Cost breakdown. We're going to, the costing and pricing is always the most difficult part, I think, in understanding where you need to be at. You can get to a point though where you're keeping information. I keep a Google Drive, and I have a sample drive here where I actually go in and keep completed responses and completed winners. And I show clients how to do this and teach you how to set each of those up. But you can then go in there and look at your pricing and understand where you need to be at based on a number of different indicators. I call them indicators of success. Okay. And so there is typically tied or driven to a widget number potentially. It could be a number of hours you're on a project, number of employees that you're working with, number of towers that you're providing, and so forth, or fixed amounts by days, things like this. Learn to price yourself in multiple methods. Okay. And then keep your competitive profiles up to date. So you know what your competition is doing, not just on the pricing, but also their own experience, every one of the indicators that the government's using to make a decision. And they're going to tell you that in their evaluation criteria. Okay. When you read the RFP, that's how they approach that. And so you need to be measuring yourself accordingly. Don't always, I see so many clients. I just want to look at the today with this other one company I was reviewing for the price. The person who won it left close to $20,000 on the table. The next closest response was $20,000 higher. Well, that's just silly. Why would you do that? I mean, this shows an example of what you don't know. You need to learn. You need to step back and evaluate. I can see coming within 5% of your competition, but to be half of your competition, and leaving that much money on the table, that doesn't make any sense to me. And that just shows somebody is not going to be around much longer, I would think. But understand that, keep those numbers current. And I bid really 75 percentile of the market, meaning that I'm in the top tier of those bidding because I can offset it with my qualification experience. And oftentimes I get that number. Sometimes because of that, I can come back in and negotiate just a little bit lower, but I'm still well above the mean. Okay. And so you learn that practice. But on just about every project now, because I've got statistics in place, I can tell you where the 75th percentile is going to be at on the responses. And that's just a mathematical certainty that you can get to. The ones that are bidding at half or in the bottom quartile, they're just not doing their homework. Okay. So do your homework. And understand too, whenever you're reviewing all this, that work expands. So it's to fill the time available for its completion, meaning that you need to have everything ready to go. Because if it's a 3-day response, you got to respond in 3 days. But at the same time, this one here that I wrote, they gave me 60 days to have a response back. I took 58 days and then sent it back. Okay, don't send it back early because I kept waiting for them to ask more information. Okay, and giving them the data, and I was pulling the data together, make it the best you could do. You got available time, and then you store it so I can come back to that one there and I can lift it for my future ones. So you're not wasting any time on any proposal that you ever prepare, because you can always use that information first to learn how to win, what causes you to fail, but also how to win more in the future. Okay. And always remember that, the only source of knowledge is experience. And so what I'm going to do is going to walk you through a couple here and on an RFP, but I want to share with you just quick tips. Anytime you have an RFP and you're ready to get started, is first read the entire proposal. Don't do anything until you read the entire proposal. Okay. pay attention to the items I just discussed. I went through them somewhat quickly, but this is where, build some time. Start copying statements of work for the things you're interested in. See where you fit. Okay. All the technical specs. Every time I see one, if they're different, I keep a line item list of possible tech specifications that I'm gonna come across. I'm gonna keep a line item of all the list of deliverables that I'm gonna come across. I'm gonna learn to respond back to them. I'm gonna learn about those contract terms, what doesn't fit me. Okay. And when I have problems, when there's a situation for forbearance, the ability to forgive has to come in. And we had this happen with COVID, where all of a sudden people stopped doing business, and you had to figure out how you're going to get out of that. And you had money invested in it and so on. And you have to be able to work through that. Okay. And then the format of the proposal, while I'm going to keep a sample proposal ready to go, I'm always going to redo it so it meets the individual government's formatted proposal. In qualifications and experience, I'm going to have multiple ways to describe my qualifications and describe my experience. So in each one of those ways, it's going to fit the individual RFP that I respond to. Cost, I'm always keeping pricing up to date. And that's how you make money. Okay, don't lose that part. And then your evaluation criteria. Learn to understand that 60 to 70% of every evaluation is going to be on the fact that you understand what you're responding to and that you can do the work. And they want to have confidence. So learn to build that confidence. So before we go, I'm going to see there's a question. How do we send in quotes? Every individual government in that format of proposal, they're going to tell you. One I was looking at just yesterday required them to send it still by mail with a certified envelope that's sealed. Okay. And they had to deliver it before, they could do it by overnight mail, but it had to be hand delivered. Okay. Now, also, there's all these third-party systems that try to control the flow of information. Just if you come across those, always get their free services. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pay a government to get access to their bids and proposals. That's just a waning sort of thought process. And eventually we'll be over that, because the way information flows on the internet is just so freely available that it just doesn't hurt the government. It actually hurts the government. But sometimes they still control that, but you have to register at least, and then you upload that. Always, I've heard over and over again, nightmares where that didn't work right. So always do it the day ahead of time, so that if there is an issue, you can get that extra one too. Okay, but the government's going to tell you to do that. Quotes, sometimes they'll call you up on the phone. Sometimes they want emails. Those are much more less formal. Okay, but every single government will tell you how to do that. So here, let's go out there to RFP delivery and take a look at an RFP. Okay. Oh, did I mention we're going to be coming up with chat RFP soon? Yeah, keep it a lookout. We're going to use some more technology to really help you out. Okay, and so as you go in to RFP delivery, just remember that this is a system that has more tools than our GovDirections site. GovDirections has been around since 2006. We haven't really made any significant changes until this year. The new changes, as we gradually walk some of you still over, if you haven't been using GovDirections, don't go over there and use RFP delivery. If you haven't been using RFP delivery, move on over. You got some more tools, more bells and whistles. But we don't want to disrupt the marketplace too much for us. Over 116,000 companies use the other system, so we want it to maintain its usefulness as long as we can. But we're going to give you new tools, and you are looking at that. The fact that we're now in the App Store. Make sure you download that app. It has even more tools, and you're not focused so much on receiving that email alert. Email alerts oftentimes end up in the spam folder, or they get caught up and held. And there's all kind of words that are in bid titles, and we can't control that too much. But on the app now, it's instant, and there's no hold. Okay, so you can get there. When you come in, just remember that your search process itself has new tools. Okay, and so if I'm looking at a particular bid or proposal, I can come in and I always go to my home account in the home, and that's going to take me to my dashboard. If I don't see the dashboard here, that means I'm in searches. Okay, here's the dashboard. Your settings, your daily alert, your saved bids, tools to help you. GovSchool, where we're teaching today. YouTube Live, for those that are you on YouTube Live. This one here will be available to you in just a few minutes. GovAdvice, here's a micro consulting platform. You need some technical assistance, we're here for you. The number one request is, hey, Mark, can you help me by reading my first proposal? I'll be glad. If you have that question, go ahead and send it to me. I'll help you with that, okay? Tell you that up front. Your filters always here. You can store those filters, grab them at any time. I have a number of ones, real estate ones, insurance, benefit plans. I can run those and apply it at any given time, okay? Store it there. They're also in your settings on a tab, as well as your keyword items that you saved. Okay. Your saved bids, the ones you work in, you capture them, they're there. Okay. But right now, let's go look. I'm going to go and see if I can find the human resource project. Here we go. I can slide out that tab with 197 industries. I'm not limited by state, so I'm going to keep it open. I'm not really so concerned about the federal. I'm not really looking at federal, but if I was, I could use that as a filter as well. I can then, even in NAICS code, I'm not really concerned about it. Local governments, state governments don't use set-asides, don't use NAICS code as a general rule. Okay. So you want to just keep it globally. We're crosswalking every single listing in one of these industries. Human resource studies is what I'm looking for. You might be looking for something else. I can save that filter here and apply it at the same time. It'll save, and then it'll show me the result. Go in there. I've got human resource studies. Okay. Here's one in Utah. All of these will tell you the level of government, will tell you the due date, will tell you the state it's in, give you the ability to social share it. Let's go ahead and tweet this one here. Here we go. You can find subcontracting. Yes, you can. They're posted. Look for the word subcontracting. I just tweeted that one out. Let the whole world know about that bid. Okay. So I'm going to share it, or I can just, it can go out there. I can schedule it, email it to someone else, print it out, and so forth. Okay. Knowing that they're not speculative. Telling you the level of government. If it doesn't say state and local, it's going to be federal. As you can see here, state and local is by far, there's 20 to 1 number of contracts once you get outside the defense. Okay. And there's active opportunities. So let's go to Utah. Utah would be a great place to go. I'm looking at the type and going in there, drilling into it. And I'll see this is in for Ogden, the city of Ogden, nice town. Okay. Details there, leave. I can always go back and save it. So don't lose it. I capture the bid. Okay. Go in. Let's pop over. There's Ogden. Here's the bid. The first thing I'm going to do when I'm trying to figure this out is I'm going to look at the cover sheet, move through. They're going to give me most likely some who to contact and when it was announced. Sometimes they'll put information like due date and other pieces of information in. This one's pretty innocent, except it's showing me it's right there with some, maybe I'm going to do some ski weather, got to know reasons why you want to go work somewhere. The purpose, this is your scope. Okay. And they're going to give me some details. I got to have it back by July 12th. Okay. So I'm looking through this. Details are already here, ready to go. The introduction, overview. Okay. Scope of work. Here we go. This thing is singing the song to me. This is the one I wanted to buy. Okay. Because I want to go through, I want to be out there ski season. I want to go learn, and I'm going to work at the same time and do some traveling. So you got to have some reasons to enjoy your thing. Okay. Enjoy your work. So here, see how they're breaking it out in the list of deliverables in section 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. So whenever already starting to think, when I respond, I'm going to address those in the same way, same manner as they have as presented to me. This is the logic that they're using. I'm going to try to use the same type of logic. And they're looking for particular items. Okay. They want you to do some specifics. Each proposal provided to you in a certain way. Okay. And you're going to do that. Your experience. So I'm going to do 1, I'm going to break out the details. 2, I'm going to give them my insurance. 3, I'm going to give them in my description. Okay. Normally, a lot of us might start with the description of the firm. Not in this case here, they want this insurability evidence first. Okay. Then they want your biographies. I'm going to have that ready to go. Any principal contact, and I'm not just going to give them the ones I'm probably going to use. I'm going to give them everybody I know. Okay. Everybody's a part of me. Go ahead and just impress them, start off with. They want 5 public sector references. Give them ready to go. If they have them in Utah, put those first. If not, something that's close to them, city first or county first, if they're a county, and so forth. And then have the narrative of the methodology available to them. Okay. And if I'm using subs, I'm going to list those. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to add a bunch of other stuff. This is what they want. They only want 10 pages. Okay. And going through that. So be aware of that as you prepare it. And good news, only 20% is cost. Okay. And references, 20%. Capability experience, 30% method. Look at there. 80% is basically how well I sell myself. I mean, come on, people. If you started your own business and you believe in yourself to start your own business, you can win this contract here if you do this business. 20% is all the cost is. I mean, my goodness, I can go in there 90% on this one and probably not lose it. 90% of the marketplace, and so just know that going into it, I've got to sell myself first. I've got to have capability and experience. I got to be able to do that. And most of us can do that. So you're on the road to that. Okay. As you go through here, you read the detail. You get your insurance requirements. This is, I have it if I don't have it. If I don't have it, I'm gonna tell them I don't get it. I'm gonna get my letter from my by my insurer, and they're gonna say, yes, if you give Mr. Knowles this project, he'll be able to insure him at this level. I have this level here. This is most common. Okay. But don't go out and spend a lot of money on something you don't need until you win the contract. They'll give you time for it. Okay. You just have to have it in place beforehand with these particular clauses. Okay. Obviously, they probably have been burned before. And so they want to make sure that's included. So don't leave it out. Your insurers will give you a standard one. You need to make sure that they got these two provisions written in there because they apparently needed that to make sure of. Okay. And this other part here. So you got to go step back on that. And not only that, but they made the number 2 item. So they're obviously going to pay some attention to that. Okay. So be aware of that going into it. Additional information, terms, conditions, just more stuff that you can add. Okay. Please maintain your mute status. Help me. I don't mean to be rude when I meet you. Okay. So we just keep that on there for the background noise. Okay. And some other details, all straightforward. They're giving me enough time. I got till July 12th. I'm not going to start this on July 10th. I'm really thinking about it right now. I'm going to start pulling information together. I'm going to watch out for those Q&As. I'm probably not going to ask any questions. It's just the philosophy. You may have a different philosophy. I'd like to see what other questions there are. I feel like the government needs to know what they want when they put it in here. And so if they don't, then I'm not going to speak to it. It's just a philosophy. Okay. And if there's some questions that, for example, I need to know how many employees they have, I need to go find that out. I can go to their budget online. I could go to Ogden's information on the purchasing page. I can find out just what I need to. Don't be lazy, people. Okay. So make sure you get the information yourself. This is the performance research that you do. Okay. And you most likely can tell who's downloaded the information and who else your competition is going to be. But if you're not, you can look at some recent ones in the area. Just Google, Utah contracts for human resource management in the last 6 months. Okay. And you'll find some, and you can see who's bidding in that area and then go look them up. They're most likely going to be the same bidders. It just doesn't change that much. Okay. I'm going to get that deadline. I'm not waiting till July 12th at 1 o'clock, but I'm going to get in there July 11th. Maybe about 1 o'clock. And if that's on a Sunday, I'll get there by Friday. But I'm not going to get it there by July 1st because then I can miss a very important Q&A. Okay. And I'm going to show you how to find some subcontracting opportunities. Just 1 second. Okay. Go in here and your questions related to RFP and your submission of your proposal. And so when you start doing these, you're going to have what I'm going to suggest that you do is build that Google Drive. Okay. In your Google Drive, this is where I start. I have one file. Say it starts with, this is what I do. This is going to be my new RFP that I'm going to start writing. And then it's going to be eventually filled to just like this one here for that RFI. I have all these details. And most of these details are brand new. In this particular request for information, no, they're not brand new. I've been writing for 34 years. And so a lot of this is just the same detail over and over again. And I'm just pulling it new to this individual in the way that they want me to. Okay. And so that's where I'm going to start on that component. In that, I'm going to have some things pre-built. I'm going to have my performance and pricing research done. I'm going to look at what other folks are doing, what my process pricing is, what the competition is doing. I may go in and look at all the different contracts I potentially could bid on, looking to see who's won them in the past, keeping that data fresh and current. Okay. And then the amount. GovDirections maintains this kind of data for literally since 2006. We have over 5 million records. We can help pull some of that if you need that. Okay. I'm going in and I'm maintaining that detail so that I can pull it out at any given time. I'm going to know where my pricing is going to be in different ways until I can pull out that pricing. I'm going to have forms and certifications and every document that I'm going to need already prepared based on the state. Okay. And certification. I don't have any certifications, but if you do, then you'll have them there. I'm going to have executive summary written up in different ways that I'm going to lift that. And then my qualifications experience always there, as well as all of those individuals who are associated with me. Build that Google Drive. If you don't have one built, get in touch with us. I can, these are kind of things I can just give you a copy of. As you can see here, I have that in a copied way for our members. We have members who use these in different ways, coming in, maintaining those capability statements. I don't know if you know Dr. Harper. She does that for us and gets that capability statement for you. If you don't have those, you need to have that ready to go. So you're there. So getting some requests here. One is how to locate subcontracts. One way is just to go in go back to your home account. A couple of ways to subcontract. Okay, subcontracts are basically when the government itself is seeking to hire a prime. Let's say I'm going to build a new college football stadium. Okay, and then that prime is going to go in and hire the individuals who are going to work with the furnishings, the ones that are going to do the electrician, electrical parts, the concrete parts, same like that. Okay. So if you're just looking for general, if I'm a concrete worker, then oftentimes I can just go in and search in that field that I'm in. Okay. And then you can see those bids. And just remember that not only are you looking at subs in some cases here, but you're also looking at smaller projects that you're easy enough for you to get. Okay. So something simple as stairwells. So it's just sub. They're not going to have a prime. It's not going to be the requirement of a sub. Okay. So know that, but you're going to still be much more likely. The primes aren't bidding those projects. They're too small, not something that they were going to be working with. Okay. The other part of that, if I went in and searched and I went in and did that, I would look in our system. You can just look for the word subcontract. Okay. Start there. Oop, I misspelled it. Got to spell it correctly. Apologies. I'll go back. It's not a Google type system where it's going to help you correct on your spelling. So make sure you got subcontract, search, and then this is going to show me those bids that have subcontracts, contracting, and so forth. Okay, where they might be looking for others and in the process. Okay, and so the general would be there with the construction manager risk monitoring that, and then the subcontracting as a part of that. Okay, oftentimes in front of it, the very first few words will have the word subcontracting, subcontractors. Okay, and so on, or just subs in general. Okay, if someone is posting specifically with us as a subcontract, then they could report it that way and be classified that way at the very top. When you actually are sorting information, you could say, I only want subcontracts. Okay, but I can also go in, and that would be under your filter. Subcontracts, subcontractor. One in. These are all have that. Now, the other part of that is actually watching to see who wins a contract. Okay. Trying to find one which is actually specifically subcontract. Don't create work. We only show those as they're there. Okay. Searching through. These are all going to have subcontracts as a part of it, but not specifically at the column. Let's go back and do that word subcontractors. So we always save your keyword search and you'll find that to be there. Okay. Those words are sometimes they're buried. So like this, the recreation room dormitory, and within that contract is not in the title, but it's in the bid itself. And that's what it's showing me there as a part of that. Okay. So use that search methodology in order to get that for you there. Okay. And so all the subs, it will show you which types of subs in here, and they will in different areas, and then they're going to be respond to it in the appropriate way. Okay. And so each of those there. Now, another way too, as well, is to follow who's winning the contract. Okay. So we publish the most recent 30-day awards. And not, sometimes these agencies don't even know that they've won the actual contract itself. Okay. So when I search the award notices, they're going to have, like, here's one right here. With the award notice in front of it, I open that up, and then it's going to tell me who's the winner. Okay. I'm going to go in and potentially drill down, contact. It's a $31 million contract. Roundhouse has won it. They're going to be looking for subcontractors in the Warner Robins, Georgia area. Okay. And most likely going to have a percentage set requirement that they have to use small businesses as well. Okay. So I'm going to look them up. I can find them in USAspending.gov, or the details within the award letter that you'll see as attached here is not yet here because it's just announced. Okay. It'll be there eventually. And then and you can contact them and let them know that you're interested as a sub. Okay, approaching them that way. Subcontracting is not as formalized as contracting directly with you. Okay, so as well, so you're able to. And then even if you don't, if they don't use you on this particular one, potentially this organization knows how to win contracts, so they're going to be much more likely to can use you in the future when you reach out to them. Okay, you have to have that capability statement ready to go. Okay. Some good questions there. How those RFP looks very similar, easy to read, but the ones I had to come across are so hard to read and understand. So any suggestions? Yeah, I do have a suggestion of that. Okay. There's a great little tool called Chat PDF. Okay. And this is where can you come in? Take that RFP that's so difficult. Here's that one for Ogden. Okay. copy your URL. Let me get back here. I've lost my window now. There it is. And I'm on it from a URL, drop it in, go get it. Oh, that wasn't the URL, that was the title. Maybe it was the title. There it is. So here is, it's so hard that chat PDF is going to tell me about it. Okay. So it's giving me some tools. This is a free tool for you to use, folks. You're not using it now. You should. Okay. I know everybody's concerned about, graduate students or college students writing 20-page essays, but that's not really the primary purpose of these two tools, AI. So it comes in here. This is the PDF. It reads it, understands it. It could be a million pages long. Okay. It's you got to pay a little bit for that. I think that analysis, but what's the deadline? What are the criteria for the consulting firm be evaluating? Okay. And you're going to be in there evaluating local and statewide trends. And so it helps explain it to you. Okay. So it's so hard is no longer an excuse. And if it does, if artificial intelligence doesn't work for you, then you just reach out to customer care at rfpdelivery.com and I'll put some human intelligence into it and see if we can't come together on some things. The last thing I want to leave you with on that question specifically, if you don't understand it, and I'll let submit to everybody. Okay. If you don't understand it, then maybe that's not the right RFP. Okay. Move along. Don't dwell on something that you don't fully grasp. Okay. Because that means it's already a process that's not familiar with you, and you need to get to a process to begin with that is something that you're familiar with. Okay. So here's some tools. We're now at a 45-minute line away. I always talk way too much. And I'll stop and see if there's any final questions before I leave you today. This was recorded on YouTube Live, so you can go back to YouTube Live and check it out and know that you can watch it on demand and have it there. This particular slideshow is available for you. Here are the slides. I'm going to share it with you. You're welcome to take those slides, and anybody who has this link can use it. I feel free to share this information to you, and I want you to do that. I've also written a small pamphlet that I have available here for you that you can use at your own leisure about how to read an RFP. And I've written this at the request for some folks and just how to walk through, and you're welcome to grab that online as well. It's not a formal book, but just something that we have available for you. Always looking for you to join us. If you're not joining our service, member of our services, then please check us out. We're available to you at online at $34 per month to start, and up to $100 depending on the level of services you have. And I'll be glad to help you in any way we can. So reach out to us. The contact information, we're located in Atlanta, Georgia. We're located at the Ponce City Market area. We have an office in 8500, and we are available at 800-492-8523. You can contact us at any time. Have a great afternoon.